O brave new world that has such people in it. Shakespeare gave those words to Miranda in The Tempest, a young woman raised on an island, sheltered from mankind, who sees other human beings for the first time and finds them marvelous. She is innocent. That is the point. She has not yet learned what people are capable of. I borrowed her innocence and placed it in the mouth of a civilization that had no excuse for innocence. That was my title. Brave New World. What is the novel about? It's about a future in which nearly everything has been solved. War, poverty, disease, aging, loneliness, instability, unhappiness, all solved. The world state has achieved what most utopias promise: comfort without interruption, pleasure without consequence, stability without end. The price is the human soul. Children are no longer born, they are manufactured. Human beings are produced in bottles, sorted into castes before birth, and conditioned to love the station assigned to them. Alphas at the top, epsilons at the bottom, each made to fit the machine, and then persuaded that the machine is happiness. There is no family, no motherhood, no fatherhood, no lasting love. Everyone belongs to everyone else. That is a sexual slogan and a political principle. Nothing must be private. Nothing must be exclusive. Nothing must be deep enough to become dangerous. Art has been replaced by entertainment. Religion has not disappeared. It has been reorganized. Its symbol is no longer the cross, but the T of the Model T. Henry Ford is not merely admired. He has become the nearest thing this world allows to a god. Where were you when you wrote Brave New World? I was 37. It was 1931. The old liberal world was losing confidence in itself. The Great Depression had made economic optimism look rather foolish. Fascism was rising in Europe. The Soviet experiment was showing what could be done when men decided to reorganize mankind by force. But I was not only afraid of brutality. Brutality is easy to recognize. One may resist a boot because it feels like a boot. I was more interested in the softer forms of control. The dictators were discovering mass obedience. The advertisers were discovering mass desire. The industrialists were discovering mass production. And in America, which I had visited, I saw something both exhilarating and alarming. A civilization organizing itself around consumption with almost religious confidence. Ford was the emblem. He represented efficiency. His workers could be better paid than many of their contemporaries, and therefore easier to mistake for free. I come from a family in which science was taken seriously. My grandfather, Thomas Henry Huxley, defended Darwin with such vigor that they called him Darwin's bulldog. I did not grow up fearing science. I feared science without conscience. I wrote Brave New World in 4 months. It came out of a particular fury, though fury, in Englishmen of my class, often presents itself as composure. The book was partly a reply to H.G. Wells and to the bright utopian faith that science and planning would save mankind if only we surrendered enough authority to them. I did not believe that. I thought mankind was much too ingenious to be trusted with utopia. How does the world state work? Its motto is community, identity, stability. The world state maintains power by conditioning desire. Before birth, the embryo is shaped according to its future function, some strengthened, some deliberately stunted. The body is prepared for obedience before the mind is even awake. Then comes what they call education. Children are trained by repetition, pleasure, discomfort, and sleep teaching. Recordings whisper approved sentences into their ears night after night until the sentences become indistinguishable from thought. A population so trained does not need to be forced. It wants what it has been made to want. And when desire fails, there is soma. Soma is more than a drug. It's a political tool. Anxiety, grief, religious longing, existential dread, all the ancient inconveniences of being human, can be dissolved. A gram is better than a dam. The world state has decided that nothing important is worth suffering for. That is the horror. The system has not abolished the knowledge of pain. It has abolished the willingness to accept pain as meaningful. Why is Shakespeare forbidden? The world state permits entertainment. It does not permit art. In my novel, the citizens attend the Feelies, cinema enhanced by touch and sensation, immediate experience without inward consequence. One leaves satisfied and unchanged. That is the ideal. Shakespeare is forbidden because Shakespeare is the opposite of Soma. His language is dense, excessive, ambiguous, and alive with contradiction. He assumes that a human being can be jealous, noble, ridiculous, murderous, tender, lustful, faithful, mad, repentant, and sublime. Such creatures cannot be governed by slogans. You cannot read King Lear in a state of chemically maintained contentment. You cannot understand Hamlet if you have been conditioned never to remain alone with a difficult thought. Who are we following in this world? Three people, principally. Each one exposes the world state from a different angle. Bernard Marx is an alpha, one of the elite, but physically smaller than an alpha is expected to be. There is a rumor that alcohol accidentally entered his bottle during development. Bernard is unhappy in a world designed to make unhappiness obsolete. He feels the absence of something he has no words for. By the standards of his world, he is defective. By ours, he may simply be the beginning of a person. But Bernard is no hero. Dissatisfaction is not the same thing as nobility. When the system rewards him, he becomes much less philosophical. Then there is Lenina Crown, beautiful, conventional, almost perfectly conditioned. She is what the world state looks like when it works, which is to say, when it has nearly finished its job. Something in her still flickers, just enough to make her sadder than she knows. Bernard and Lenina travel to a savage reservation in New Mexico, one of the few places where the world state has left human life in its old, painful disorder. People are born there, age, suffer, practice religion, feel shame, and die. In other words, they remain human. There they meet John. He was born on the reservation to a woman from the world state who had been accidentally left behind. He grew up between two worlds. His education came almost entirely from a single book his mother had brought with her, a complete works of Shakespeare. It was nearly everything he knew of civilization. He is brought back to London as the savage. The world state does not destroy him. It turns him into a spectacle. The people around him are amused by him. Who is Mustapha Mond? Mustapha Mond is one of the world controllers, among the very few people permitted to read forbidden books. Shakespeare, the Bible, philosophy. He is intelligent, civilized, lucid, and honest. He has seen the alternatives. He has counted the cost, and he has chosen stability. That is why he is frightening. The great conversation between John and Mond is the true trial in the novel, meaning against comfort, soul against system. John asks for Shakespeare. Mond says the people would not understand it. John asks for beauty. Mond says beauty produces instability. John asks for truth. Mond says truth is not compatible with happiness. John asks for God. Mond says God has become unnecessary because no one is old, alone, or afraid enough to need him. The terrible thing is that Mond argues very well. He knows this world is not noble, but it works. Near the end of their exchange, John says, "I want God, I want poetry, I want real danger, I want freedom, I want goodness, I want sin." Mond replies, "In fact, you're claiming the right to be unhappy." And John says, "All right then, I'm claiming the right to be unhappy." That is the hinge of the book. Before that conversation, the novel describes a world. After it, the novel reveals what that world means. Everything turns on that exchange. Why Ford? And what does Freud have to do with it? I used Ford because the assembly line was a philosophy. Divide the process, simplify the task, standardize the part, eliminate friction, increase output. Very useful for automobiles. Rather sinister when applied to persons. The world state has extended Ford's logic into biology, education, sexuality, leisure. Mystery has been replaced by function. Culture has been replaced by conditioning. And the question of what life is for has been made unnecessary. The citizens are kept too busy enjoying it to ask. Freud is in the background as well. The world state understands that families create inward life, loyalties, wounds, memories, obligations. So it abolishes the family and keeps the sexuality. It preserves appetite and removes attachment. Pleasure without fidelity, reproduction without motherhood, community without love, identity without selfhood, stability without meaning. What is the central warning of Brave New World? That happiness is not the same thing as a good life. The citizens of the world state are not secretly miserable. That would make the book easier. Many of them are genuinely content. One must be honest about this. The system has solved many real problems. It has simply solved them by abolishing the person who might have experienced them. Suffering is not good in itself. Only a fool or a sadist would argue otherwise. But the capacity to suffer may be inseparable from the capacity to love, to create, to worship, to repent, to recognize beauty, to seek the truth. The world state knows these things are valuable and disruptive. Love is disruptive. Art is disruptive. Truth is disruptive. God is very disruptive. Therefore, they must go. The book is not a warning that the future will be painful. It is a warning that the future may be agreeable, soft, bright, entertaining, medicated, and spiritually dead. The world state does not persecute the soul. It makes the soul unnecessary. You revisited the book in 1958. What had changed? In 1958, I wrote Brave New World Revisited. I had originally placed the world state many centuries in the future. By then, I suspected I had been too generous. The machinery was arriving faster than I expected. Mass persuasion, pharmaceutical consolation, political language emptied into slogans, entertainment swollen until it occupied the place once held by culture. The deeper tendencies were all quite visible. The manipulation of desire had reached a scale no tyrant of the old world could have imagined, and most of it required no coercion at all. The older tyrannies punished dissent. The newer ones made dissent feel unnecessary. A population that loves its distractions, that can have its moods managed, that has lost the habit of sitting in silence, such a population does not need many policemen. I was not describing a government doing this to people. I was describing a culture learning to do it to itself. That is the more elegant prison. The door is open, but no one wants to leave. Why should someone read Brave New World now? Because Soma has not arrived as one pill. It has arrived as an atmosphere. Small mercies against consciousness, endless interruptions, pleasures designed to fill every silence, 1,000 ways never to be alone with oneself. Some are chemical, some are technological, some are commercial. Most are voluntary. That is why they work. What happens when pleasure becomes the organizing principle of a civilization? What happens when comfort becomes the highest moral good? What happens when every difficult feeling is treated as a malfunction? John the Savage chose suffering over comfort, and it destroyed him. Even so, the choice was his to make. The crime of the world state is that it takes the choice away, and with it, the capacity to ask what life is for. You are reading this, which means the choice is still available to you. For now.